I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how. Today, I'm going to be talking about, well, I just talked about why I hate live streams. I'm going to do a YouTube update, basically talking about what's going on with my channel. I'm going to talk about self-promotion and building your own brand. I'm going to talk about how to get into filmmaking. Like if you aren't a filmmaker and you want to create content, like where to learn, how to learn, what to learn, and not letting new things overwhelm you. At the end, I'm gonna give my real 100% honest feelings on FilmHUB. I'll probably be doing some talking about them throughout, but at the end, I'm gonna get a little bit deeper than I usually do. I'm going to be giving a Craving update, which is the horror movie that I just finished production on and finishing post on. I'm going to talk a little bit about crowdfunding and about potentially using crowdfunding to raise money for yet another horror feature that I'm thinking about doing. I'm going to talk about why I don't like sharing my work in early stages, especially when I'm in post-production. Like I really don't like sharing stuff until it's like pretty much finished. I'm going to talk about my pick for the best type of streaming service for independent filmmakers. We'll get into streaming versus physical media. Wow, this is a long list. Talking about how about working faster versus working better, or vice versa. Talking about my current methodology for promoting indie films. I'm kind of going to do a breakdown, like step by step, how I promote stuff. I'm gonna have a really cool question from another filmmaker asking about will traditional distribution start becoming a thing of the past. I'm going to get into that. I'll talk about putting together a filmmaking team. We're going to talk about promoting on different social media channels. I thought this was really relevant, with Twitter potentially going away. And talking about what's coming up for me with documentaries and whatnot. So let's get into it. Got comments already. Let me get over to them. This is great. So Aaron, this is great. I just reached out to you on Facebook. Great. And I look forward to hearing your questions. No, thanks, Aaron. Hey, Jay, can I talk to us about Tubi? It's the most realistic place to show movies right now. What does a typical month look like there? Any idea of the payout? So I have talked a lot about Tubi on my channel. So I will say, yeah, I think Tubi is probably the best platform right now for independent filmmakers to get onto. The problem with Tubi, the main problem is, it's a large streaming network and they do not accept direct submissions. It's not like Prime Video Direct where you can just upload directly. The only way really to get through Tubi is through a distributor or an aggregator or a distribution platform like FilmHUB. But I like Tubi a lot. As far as what does a typical month look like there, that's really an impossible question to answer. Because I've said this a ton of times, but I've seen numbers from thousands of films over the last few years, and there's yes, I guess I could add them all up and average them and say, yes, the average movie makes, $150 a month, but the numbers are everywhere. There are movies making pennies a month on Tubi, and there are movies that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and you could be anywhere in between there. Most filmmakers are definitely on the lower end of that spectrum, but you can definitely make some good money there. As far as the payout, Tubi is an AVOD platform, AVOD, advertising video on demand. Basically, the payment comes through advertisers, and that pay rate is based on, just like on YouTube, something that they call CPM or RPM, which can differ from movie to movie and from advertiser to advertiser. So it's really hard to say. I was talking to a distributor a few months ago, and they were saying that the average CPMs or RPMs on Tubi range between $7 and $9. which basically means for every 1,000 monetized views, you get around $7 to $9. At least that's my understanding of it. All right, we have another question. What genres do well in independent space in general? Are documentaries still a viable option in 2022? Oh, that's a great question. Um, so again, there's examples of high earning things in every genre, but as far as independent movies go, it's a lot different than traditional ways of thinking. Like for example, a lot of traditional distributors will tell you like comedies or romantic comedies are no good, or at least they're no good unless you have really big name talent. And that's not necessarily true. Like in an independent film space, if you have a romantic comedy and it's focused on some underserved market, whether that be minority or LGBTQ or something like that, or just a really specific, like the main characters have a really specific like occupation or job or something that can be leveraged into audience interest. Like stuff like that can do really well. And then, there's the old standards, like horror is having a great year, like a really great year, especially with, Terrifier and, the like Smile was a big hit, and Barbarian, horror is always happening. But I imagine that there'll be a huge glut of it if there isn't already. But it's still, as long in horror, I think the trick is staying in a a more niche down subgenre, and not doing just the traditional ghost story or traditional zombie movie, but finding ways to mash up genres and do something different. As far as documentaries, I do think they're viable. I think there was a bit of a bubble with those that we're still in, but maybe we're coming towards the end of it. This is just conjecture from my point of view. I think that, I mean, I'm still making them. I have no plans to stop doing them, but are they doing as well as they were for me 2 years ago? Not exactly, but and I've I've went back into doing narratives again too. Just finished Craving, which is a horror movie, which will be coming out. But and again, just like with the romantic comedy thing that I was talking about, as long as you're picking a documentary and you're telling an interesting story and you know how to reach that audience, like it has a identifiable core audience, and that audience is somebody that watches documentaries. That's another thing too. That can all be really good. I've talked many times about the dog rescue documentary I did, and I just targeted people that were into dogs and dog rescues, or Bigfoot stuff or UFO stuff. But yeah, we, as far as the documentaries go, we just finished a like 3 different UFO or paranormal documentaries, and then have a Bigfoot one coming out. We're working on a diet documentary, and I'm also looking at the next narrative feature I want to do. All right, so Kenya asks, do you think the opportunity for independence will always be there, or do you think they will cut us out like they did on Amazon or Netflix? You're talking about, I would assume he's talking about Tubi. Who knows? The way things usually go is, a streamer like, Amazon will open stuff up for, independent films. They'll build up their library, then they'll start choking out the independent films. As a platform becomes more and more popular, mainstream and bigger studios start co-opting it. So it is very possible that Tubi could go that way. And it's also very possible that other streaming platforms will pop up right behind them and take that place. I mean, 4 years ago, we were sitting here having this exact same conversation about Amazon and talking about how awesome Amazon was. And then Amazon stopped being awesome. And then Tubi came up, and, eventually Tubi will stop being awesome and something else will come up, or at least that's the hope, that there'll always be something there for us. All right, another question. Hey, Jay, good luck on your AMA. Here's my question. With your knowledge of other projects, do you have any data on 40 versus 60 versus 90-minute movies? I realize more ads with longer films. Ooh, that's a good question, man. And I'm going to give a quick answer, like kind of out of my butt, but that's something I actually, and I have enough data, I could have a better answer for this, but I don't. Um, to tell you the truth, I have personally, because like, since I've been putting out documentaries, our feature documentaries range from 55 minutes up to about 90, I think is the longest one that we've done. And I've honestly seen very little correlation in earnings between length and the revenue that the movie earns. Very, very little. Um, so I don't know. I honestly, streaming has really changed the face of what is considered to be a feature or the importance of runtime. They're all over the place. Um, so no, I actually don't. And even with narratives, because I've been releasing narratives for other filmmakers on FilmHub, and I've done well, probably a dozen from a filmmaker who a lot of their, feature projects are 60, 55 minutes. One of them's like 48. And I think like the 55-minute one is like bringing in better revenue than a lot of the feature length stuff that I have, so who knows? But I do think the one cool thing, at least I think it's cool, is that, streaming has it's kind of taken us out of the box, like, what is a feature film? What is a TV show? What is a short, anyway, I like that. All right. So yes, on indie producing, how do you choose writers? I write, but too slow for the ideas. I have a feeling someone can just write a first draft. So as far as hiring writers, to be straight honest, I have, I can't say I've never done it. When I used to run an animation an animation company, and I hired a couple of writers for that. But I mean, honestly, like, I have writers hitting me up every day by email or Facebook. There's tons of aspiring screenwriters out there that are hungry, that want to work. They're not that hard to find. If you go onto Facebook and just type in screenwriting, you'll get a ton of screenwriting groups. I just wouldn't waste people's time unless it's a paying gig. Yeah, that's my opinion. All right. So, Aaron, FilmHub question. Okay. On FilmHub, would you recommend setting your available from a date and month out, so your QC period, in order to give yourself more of a scheduled release for your marketing? So so on FilmHub, when you upload there, you can select a target available date, and some people think, okay, well, I'll set like a later date, so that it'll pass the QC and it'll get on the platforms, and then it will be released on that date, and I can promote to that date. Here's the problem with that is FilmHub's completely at the mercy of the platforms as far as when the film goes live, and those dates are ever fluid. Those time periods are ever fluid. So like, Tubi, for example, 2 years ago, I was submitting movies. They would get on Tubi and they would be up in like 2 weeks. I've had others in the last year that have taken up to 3 months, from submission to, going live. It can, and then, Amazon will be different than Tubi. So it's really hard to do that. I mean, I guess you could, I guess if I was doing that, I would set the date maybe 5 months in advance. But even then, you're still not guaranteed that you're going to get even on Tubi. And a lot of the data that platforms use to pick movies is what other platforms are picking them. So like, if you set a release date way out and nobody's picked up your movie, Tubi might not even pick it up. So who knows? I personally, and this is just, a lot of people don't like to hear this, but this is just my 2 cents. Distribution has changed. Streaming has changed everything. And, that traditional, like, I'm going to set a date and this is the date my movie's going to release, and I'm going to push all my advertising toward that. I'm not going to say it's irrelevant, but it's not how things are headed. And it's not really where things are. And honestly, all of that, especially if you don't have a robust promotion budget, all of the marketing and stuff that, indie filmmakers do ahead of a release is 95% wasted promotion because they can't get the movie yet. They can't watch the movie yet. And there's hundreds of movies coming out every day. If you start pushing for a movie, you say, hey, go check out my movie on the 29th, and it's the 5th. By the time the 5th comes along, the person that might have clicked over when they saw that post on the 5th, they forgot about it, or they've something else has caught their eye. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I'm not a big believer as far as indie films go on the pre-promotion. I don't think it works. And as far as setting the release date, I think we just have to accept the fact that that's not how it works. When the movie comes out, push it. That's pretty much how we have to do it these days. I find many parallels between advice I hear from self-publishing authors and your channel. What's your opinion on fast release or having movies in a series as I recommend for books? So I do think that there's a lot of overlap between, filmmakers putting out movies in the manner which I do and the self-publishing thing. And to be honest, I got a lot of my early distribution knowledge and ideas from self-publishing. Because if we look at that, self-publishing, the books, that's been around, it predates Prime Video Direct and filmmakers really being able to do, full-on streaming distribution on their own. And so they've been through it all before. So there's lots of good information there. There's a Facebook group called 50 books to 50,000 or something like that. But it's a really big group, and it's all about self-publishing. And I found their promotion advice in there better than most independent filmmaker promotion things. I hope that answered that. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice. Give me a sec. Haven't done this in a while. Maybe I'm talking too fast. All right. Hey, Jay, love your videos. Do you think making a sequel to a film that may have had a modest opening could help boost both movies, or is it better to avoid sequels? So this is my hot take on singles for independent films. And I mean indie films. I'm talking really super low budget indie stuff. So if you put out an independent film and, it doesn't blow up, blow up, I think tying another movie to that is a mistake. Unless you just have extreme success with something, I think tying it to, the prior movie is a mistake. And I'm sure there's famous examples that have done this and still done really well. But I think generally speaking, in an indie space, I don't see it. But then again, I know a filmmaker, I work with a filmmaker that does this and, has made a lot of sequels to his stuff, and he does good with them. But I think in general, on an indie level, I would avoid sequels. All right, so that's it for questions now. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm doing with my channel, because it's been a little different lately. To be really honest, I've gotten a little bit burned out on doing the straight one-on-one videos of me, into the camera explaining this and that. I'm not saying I'm going to stop doing them, but I'm not going to do as many of them. Truth be told, I think I've pretty much said all that I've got to say about that. So from here out, I will continue to do them, but I'll just do less of them. And another thing is, I've done the kind of no frills, just me talking into the camera, no B-roll, no music on any of these. And I like that style. But, if I'm going to be doing less of them, maybe I'll put a little bit more effort into the production, do a little bit more B-roll, do some music, and, see if I can't break out of, the little bubble that I've created here. Because, while my channel does continue to grow, I don't have any videos that have, went viral. There's a very specific audience for what I'm doing. Not that that's the goal, but I want to try some different stuff. And you'll probably notice if you get notifications that I've been putting up a lot of features, both my documentaries, my narrative features, and narrative features for other filmmakers. And again, to be honest, I mean, when I break down the numbers and look at the analytics and what's driving traffic and what's making money, the movies are probably like quadruple what the filmmaking stuff is. Not that it's all about money, but it just an interesting thing. And I'm also planning to host material for other filmmakers. So like if you have video ideas that you'd like to host on a monetized channel, about filmmaking, the business of filmmaking, I'd love to get somebody that was doing reviews. I would love to have something like that on my channel. And hit me up. My email is in the description of this and pretty much all my videos. It's Jason@DJ But yeah, hit me up. I'm just to be clear, I'm not paying up front for any of these videos. It's total revenue split, but it's a pretty hearty revenue split. So if your video makes money, you'll get your money. So that's pretty much what's going on with my video channel. Had another question from Aaron here. Have you found success in renting out theaters for local screenings? I'm considering this as a lead up to the streaming release. Aaron, I think that's a really good idea. I personally have only done it twice, and once didn't do very well, but to be honest, it was early on in my career. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The second time on the release we broke even, but it did help push the streaming, and especially if you're in, LA or New York and you can get like a small, like, I think it's like 4 or 5 day run. Your movie can be eligible for some of the bigger trade publications like, Variety and Hollywood Reporter, which, even if you get a bad review, that can help push, a streaming release. So yeah, I think it's a really valid thing. And I did an interview on my channel about, I don't know, 6 months ago with Christopher Everett. He's the Wilmington on Fire, and he actually made quite a bit of money on a self theatrical release. And I know a few others that have done it too. So I definitely think it's a viable thing, and I think that there are more and more theaters that are offering that as an option, to rent out theaters. So yeah, I definitely think it's a good thing. Ooh, yeah, I like this one. Caleb asks, what do you think about uploading videos to FilmHub and releasing them on YouTube at the same time? Funny you should ask. This is actually something that I've been experimenting with over the last 6 months with my channel and FilmHub. So what I've been doing on some of my documentaries, and to be honest, I usually save the ones that that I think might not have as much legs, to experiment with. So I'll put them up. But so anyway, I've been releasing a movie. So I'll submit it to FilmHub. And then while it's doing the QC process at FilmHub, I will premiere it on YouTube. And it'll run pretty much exclusive on YouTube until it starts hitting the platforms on FilmHub. To be further honest, I don't have a lot of data to share on this yet because a lot of these movies haven't yet hit the major platforms on FilmHub. The few that have, to be honest, I'm not seeing on the, I know I just said the movies are out doing the documentary, or movies are out doing my filmmaking videos on my YouTube. But in the case of documentaries, not so much. I have a few, I think I've put up 7 of my documentaries on my channel. And, of the 7, only one of them has over 100,000 views, 250,000, I think, on Don't Call Me Bigfoot, but I could be lying. That might be closer to 100. I'm saying 250 now. I'd have to look it up. But that one, and then I think there's another that's at 30,000 or something like that. But everything else is, the views counts are still in like the thousands and stuff. So I'm not seeing a lot of cash from there yet. But as you put more and more stuff on YouTube, you find that those things can build off of each other. So my plan is to keep doing it. And a lot of people say, well, if you do that, doesn't it mess up your release on Tubi or your release on Amazon? Or here's the thing, guys, we're in a totally different state of both distribution and, as viewers, how we watch things. So if you come across something on Amazon that looks interesting, because the way most indie films are found too is, it's like it's on the homepage of the thing, or it's you driving people there specifically from, Facebook or Twitter or whatever. So most people will come across something on Amazon that looks interesting. They click on it and they watch it, where they watch it Amazon. The only way that they're not watching it on Amazon is if it's a rental or purchase and the price is too high. Then they might go look somewhere else. But truth of the matter is, if you're on YouTube and you come across something interesting and it's on YouTube, you're going to watch it on YouTube. If you're on Tubi and you come across something interesting, you're going to watch it on Tubi. So these ecosystems are more closed than they were in the past. I'm not saying windowing is gone or that we shouldn't worry about windowing, but I don't think it's quite as important for really small independent films. I hope that was somewhat helpful. All right. Have you discovered any tricks to tweak the Tubi algorithm to recommend your film? No, honestly, no. And the thing about Tubi too is like if you submit through FilmHUB anyway, I don't know how this works with traditional distributors, but I think they're changing your descriptions anyway. So all of that work I usually do on descriptions to include keywords and whatnot, I think almost all of my movies that are up on Tubi, the descriptions have been changed. So I don't really know. So no, I don't have any specific tips for Tubi. I'd say they're the same tips that you would use on Amazon or YouTube. All these algorithms basically work the same or similarly. So, again, if your retention rate is high, if your poster art is good, it's just like YouTube stuff, good thumbnail, good title, click, anyway, that's about that. Okay. So this person recently wrote and directed a 7-figure action film. So I'm diving. Oh, found that. Okay. So this person recently directed a 7-figure action film. Distribution made that experience challenging, difficult, I would assume. So they're diving into the indie film 100K world. Do you think an action film at that budget level needs a name actor? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It never hurts. But if your production value is high enough and action stuff tends to do very well on independent levels. I know an independent filmmaker right now that's making a trilogy of action films, and they're all budgeted at like 25, 30,000. And again, their first one hasn't quite came out, but their expectations for it are pretty high. And I've seen returns from other people in action that they're really good. So yeah, is it a sure thing? No. But could it do well? Yeah, it could. Yeah. Jay, do you know an expensive way? Dude, whenever I do I know I'm going to sound like a commercial for rev.com, but whenever I do any subtitles, any closed captioning, any of that stuff, I don't do any of it myself. I have it done by a service. I usually use rev.com. I think it's about as cheap as it gets. There maybe you can find a better deal somewhere, but they're the ones I use. On your quarterly statements, are you sure you're getting all your money? How do you know for sure? Oh man, yeah, I hear this all the time. You don't. I mean, truth of the matter is like, and in film distribution, you never did. Like they never did. There's no way to quantify certain types of media, especially in streaming. You're never going to know. You work with people with good reputations, and you hope for the best. I mean, I honestly, this is something that I honestly don't even think about. Like, I don't even care. You know, I like I don't worry too much about things outside of my control. I just make the movies. I make a living off my movies. Is somebody some and honestly, I think it's like naive to think that somebody like Tubi TV or Amazon is holding back, like pennies from a movie that earned like $10,000, or shit, not even pennies. Listen, like you really think something like Amazon's going to steal $100 or even half? This is companies that are worth billions. Or then people say, well, I don't trust FilmHub. They're over, I think they have something like 25,000 filmmakers now, with multiple movies. Like, do you really think that they're gonna anyway, I'm sorry. No, I just don't worry about it. I know this is what works, but what is the typical QC release period on FilmHub? I know they say it can be as short as 2 weeks, but is that not realistic? Yeah, I mean, honestly, as far as QC goes, after the upload, I think the longest I've ever waited on a QC from FilmHub is 3 weeks, like, longest. Usually it's I mean, honestly, usually it's a couple of days. Sometimes it can be a couple of weeks if your movie's problematic. And as far as the QC stuff goes, they're pretty liberal, as far as what passes and what doesn't. Like, if you have trouble passing the Film Hub QC, you got bigger problems. But yeah, as far as time period goes, it's 2 weeks a pretty safe guess. But 2 weeks just to pass the QC to where it just starts getting submitted to platforms. Then the wait is really up in the air. Another question. PJ Barnes, have you found series sequels can lead to more profitability? Yeah, I just did a whole tear on sequels a few minutes ago. As far as independent films, I don't see much use in doing sequels unless the first one was a really, really big uh, earner. Like if you had something that just exploded, yeah, keep going with it. But other than that, man, nah. I don't see series or sequels doing very well as far as like real indie stuff goes. But that's just totally my 2 cents, my opinion. I don't have a lot of data really to back that up. just basically how I feel. What do you like the most, Film Hub or Indie Rates? Well, God, this is gonna. I sound like such a politician with this, but it really fucking depends on the movie. I have movies that like Craving, for example. It's the horror movie I just did. The budget's close to 100K. Narrative film. I think it has good legs. I think it behooves me to release that through a traditional distributor like Indie Rates as opposed to Film Hub. You know, and basically that's because like they are putting more effort into selling their movies to buyers. Like Film Hub, I'm not saying that they don't do anything, but a lot of it is, it's a market, and the people come in there and take what they want. But like with indie rights or traditional distribution, I mean, they're actually getting on the phone with people, and they're talking about not just a slate of movies or something like that. They're talking about your individual movie. Like for example, again, I'll just bring up Craving again. I made a deal with Indie Rights to distribute that, and they're out at AFM a couple of weeks ago. Lining up buyers. That would have happened with Film Hub. But on the other hand, like Film Hub is just, it's no muss, no fuss. I have over 45 documentaries up through them. And sometimes the other thing is, even somebody like Indie Rights who, has a pretty robust library, they're not going to take everything. Film Hub, if it passes their QC, they take it and submit it. So I like that. I also, with Film Hub, I like the non-exclusivity. I like being able to make direct deals with platforms. Like I don't have a ton, but I have made direct contacts with certain platforms, not Tubi, I wish, but that make a little bit of money. And now if I release through someone like Indie Rights, I can't make that deal. Like, yes, I can let them make the deal, but then, they're going to take their 20%, whereas if I just made the deal direct, I'd get it all. But, so there's that. It's like a trade-off. When you go with a traditional distributor, you get a little bit more reach or, a little bit more of a hands-on approach to your movie. But, if you do like the factory thing, like FilmHUB, it's a little more impersonal, but that has its advantages too. So I'd say it just depends on your movie. What's a typical wait you've experienced after it passes QC? What's the longest you've waited? So on FilmHUB, the longest I've ever waited is probably 4 months. I think there was a period, I think it was last year, I don't know, since the pandemic, everything's one big blur. But like almost a year ago, I remember there was a period where it was just like a huge slowdown. And I usually base these numbers based on how long it takes something to get up on either Amazon or Tubi. Those are the two like biggest earning platforms for them. And again, the truth of the matter is FilmHUB doesn't have like almost any control over this. Like they'll submit it as soon as it passes QC, but like, Tubi might not be looking at movies that month. Like that's totally on their schedule. There are some times where it seems like you put something up on FilmHUB and like 2 or 3 days later, Tubi has selected it. And then there are other times it might take 2 or 3 months. There are other times where, again, you don't know, but maybe they rejected it the first time, but then it did really, really well on Amazon. And then, FilmHUB's like, hey, this movie's doing really, really well on Amazon. Tubi's like, oh shit. And then they take it. And okay, actually, the longest I've ever waited to get on Tubi was a year. I had a movie, Monsters in the Woods, put it up in 2019, and I think it went on Tubi like in 20 or 21, and it was only after it started doing better on Amazon and getting picked up by other platforms. But anyway, in general, I think the longest I've waited to get on a major platform is 4 months. But more typically, it's usually like 60 days, But again, yeah, there's no way to tell. I do remember Distributor. I've heard the stories and listened to the interviews. To tell you the truth, I am not an expert on the subject. From my understanding, is that they started growing past a certain point, and then they were. You know what? Actually, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes it's better just, I don't really know. So I know it was a bad system and a lot of people got ripped off. I don't think their intentions were bad, but it definitely went bad. So I don't know exactly what happened to them. Bitmax and I forget what the other one is. Maybe somebody can throw it out in the comments. There's Bitmax and there's another one that are like two of the major aggregators now. And Bitmax pretty much took their place. Actually, excuse me. Actually, this brings up a really good point. Somebody was saying, a year ago, I would have unequivocally said, do FilmHUB and don't pay up front, don't do Bitmax. But, a friend of mine recently released a documentary that did very well. Like I can't give his numbers, but let's just say for the sake of argument, it did very well. And they went through FilmHUB. And, the truth is in like the first week of that movie's release, it earned enough money that would have paid for that upfront, like Bitmax or whatever deal. And then they never would have had to split the 20% with FilmHUB. So like in that particular film's case, maybe the Bitmax thing would have been better. I personally, I've never. I should take that back. I did use an aggregator once, and I didn't do well. But I won't fault the aggregator. It's just the movie wasn't that great, and I didn't promote it well. But anyway, I think in general on really small stuff, I would never pay up front for an aggregator. But there are exceptions, stuff that's going to do really, really well where, maybe it'd be better to not have that big, the back end taken away. But, it depends on the movie. Oh, somebody asked, what is windowing? So windowing is basically releasing a movie on a schedule. They call it releasing a movie in windows. So like traditionally, your first window would be theatrical. And then, back in the day, then VHS and then pay cable and then, maybe network TV would have been the last thing. Now today, windowing is like a completely different thing, and it's getting very confusing and gray, and who knows what's best. But because there's movies now that are coming out day in and what do they call it, day out of days, where they premiere it at the theaters and on streaming on the same day. But a typical window these days would be a theatrical, um, a premium streaming deal or premium cable deal, like HBO, whatever. Um, and then moving into like TVOD and SVOD, rental purchase, and then when that dwindles a little bit, they start moving into the subscription and AVOD based, and that's pretty much the last window. Those would be the AVODs. But the truth of the matter is, the way a lot of smaller independent films are doing these days, it's almost better to put go straight to AVOD, because like if you have a little tiny movie, like say under $50,000, and if it does well on TVOD, then you're great, you're golden. But maybe it will, maybe it won't. But AVOD is where almost all of them are doing a little bit better. So like and the biggest push you're going to get is in a movie's first 90 days of release. So like I say, go for the platform that's going to pay the most money first, But I just said all that, and like with Craving, I definitely start with TVOD because I think the returns will be good there. But in general, that's windowing. All right, so I talked earlier about looking for other filmmakers' content for my channel, because one thing I would like to start doing is featuring some other filmmakers on here, talking about distribution and marketing and maybe some nuts and bolts filmmaking stuff. I'd really like to get somebody on those, maybe doing reviews. So if you have anything and want to submit something to me, my email's in the description. Check it out. I am not paying upfront for these videos. It'll be a revenue split, heavily in your favor. But that's the deal. If you're interested and want to do it, great. If not, that's fine too. Oh, so I did a panel. Actually, it was earlier today, which kind of made me want to do this live stream. And it was mostly podcasters, and a lot of them were interested in getting into video content, but they don't want to learn video editing. The programs sound complicated, and they can be. And I'm not advocating that everybody has to learn everything, but but you can't let that hold you back either. And like in this day of content creation, or making movies or whatever, the information and the ability to learn, like how to edit or how to shoot or how to light, it's unprecedented. It's easier today than it's ever been. And whether you're going to be a full-on like filmmaker going on sets with crews, or you're just going to be like a little one-man band doing vlogs and stuff like that, the more you can learn how to do, the more you can be a one-man band, the more value you have to add. So like, don't let learning new things overwhelm or stop you from trying. And I say that as nearing 50, and I don't like I'm still I just this year learned how to use DaVinci Resolve. And people kept saying, "Oh, switch to Resolve." And to be clear, I am not switching to Resolve. I'm going to stay with Premiere, but I did learn it, and I do like it, and I'll use it for specific things. Anyway, I learned a new trick. Also, I learned a lot more about color correction just from doing Craving. Anyway, which brings me to wait, I had another question. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that was none. All right, so Craving. Yeah, so let me do a little update on Craving. So Craving's a horror movie I shot. We shot it back in April or May. and a few pickups all the way up into August. The movie's anyway. It was about a 10-day shoot, and then probably because we did little like quarter and half day pickups here and there for even months later, so probably total maybe 15 days. Like I said, the budget was just under 100 grand, all said and done. We raised 64 or 65,000 on our initial Indiegogo, and then we raised another, I think, 6,000 through a post funds one. So I guess about 70,000 from crowdfunding. And it was actually, for me, it was a really good experience. I liked the crowdfunding experience, and to be honest, it wasn't just about raising that money. I mean, we built a lot of interest and have a little community around the movie. I mean, I have a Facebook group for it, which I haven't posted in a couple of weeks, but it's a very engaged group, and it all came through that crowdfunder. Yeah, I was a little burned out with it, but I might do it again. Like I feel like everything I learned off of that one, if I pick the right project, I think I could raise maybe a little over 100,000 on the next one. And I say that and then watch me do one and make like 5,000, but I think I could. I don't know. Well, it's something I'm going to be thinking about in 2023 for sure. And that movie so the edit is pretty much locked. We're in the scoring phase. I do have a composer, Everett Young, who's doing a fantastic job, but it's not done yet. I expect the score to be completed in the next probably 30 days. And then after that, it'll take me another couple of weeks to lock the movie, to put that in and make any final changes and export it out. Right now, I'm basically locking down my color grading. I have everything color corrected and matched, and now I'm just picking the grade that kind of goes over top. And that's actually been really fun. I haven't done it on a movie like this before. Usually I pay a colorist on this one, and I know we had more money, but the money went other places, and now we don't really have it, so I had to do it myself. But anyway, I expect the movie to be out before spring 2023, maybe a little earlier. We'll see. Craving, crowdfunding. Oh, and which brings up an interesting point. One thing that when I'm editing, I don't like to share early versions of cuts, even with producers. I never really did. Maybe it's an imposter syndrome thing, but yeah, I never did. I don't know why I said that. So I want to give my pick for the best type of streaming platform for independent films. And right now, I kind of said it earlier, but it's AVOD. And again, guys, there's going to be exceptions. There's probably people in here watching this now. They're going to say, well, I just made blah, blah, blah on TVOD, or I just made blah, blah, blah theatrically. And yes, there are examples. There are outliers. I wouldn't even say outliers. They're just examples of people that do better on TVOD or SVOD. But generally speaking, if you look at everybody, I'd say that AVOD is by far the best for independent filmmakers right now. It's easiest to get on the platforms. It's easiest to make some real money with it. The algorithms have more, the advertisers have more skin in the game. Anyway, I like AVOD. I think AVOD is definitely the way to go. Oh, streaming versus physical media. So yeah, so look, I think that in this day and age, that has filmmakers, you are going to make more money with streaming than you ever will in physical media in general. There are definitely people that do really well on physical. Actually, I just interviewed a filmmaker, Gregory Lamberson's getting ready to do a big DVD Blu-ray release of his movie, Guns of Eden. Go check it out when it comes out very soon. And I'm sure he'll do very well on physical. But he's not the norm. On the norm, streaming is where the money is. And over time, the physical is just going to keep getting lower and lower. See, Caleb asked, would you be interested in tutorials on how to use video editing software? Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. Yeah, it could be nuts and bolts stuff. It doesn't like I'm covering business stuff. I don't necessarily need people doing the same thing that I'm doing. And like I've been editing for 20 years, but I don't consider myself to be a technically proficient editor. I think I'm a very good editor, but like if you would actually watch me doing it, like real editors would be like, what is this fucking dipshit doing? Like I'm not up on my shortcuts. Like anyway. But yeah, I'd be very interested in that. Your productivity amazes me. How do you organize your time? Are you like a 14-hour a day kind of guy? So this is an interesting question. And so my short answer is no. Actually, these days, I'm probably 6-7 hours of concentrated work. I don't work long at all. But it took me many years of doing 14-hour plus days to get to the point where I am now, where like, I know where to concentrate my time. It's like the 80-20 rule, like 20% of your productivity gives you 80% of your results or something like that. So like, I do the things that are important and I skip the others. And, I know, especially in creative work, I think one of the main killers of productivity is perfectionism, and do not get me wrong. I am not saying that we don't go for our best or we just throw crap out. But, when you are editing a project, when you are shooting a project, when you're doing take after take, or you're doing, cut after cut, there comes a point where you're just making changes. Like you're not necessarily making it better or worse. You're just making changes. And over the years, I've gotten really good at knowing where that line is. I like, okay, there's 100 other things I could do to make this different, but this is where I need it to be. And this is good enough. And I'm going to go to the next thing. And I think that if anything, that's my superpower. And I don't, I'd say an average day for me is probably 7 hours. The only exception to that would be like shoot days. Like when I was on Craving, we were doing 10 to 12-hour days. Although I cut shooting days off at 12 hours, or at least I try. I'm not saying I've never went over, but I try not to. All right. So Shaba asked, how are you doing revenue splits with collaborators for your films when you put them on YouTube? Oh, you mean for people that, well, whatever. So like if I made a movie with somebody and our deal is that, I get 80% and they get 20%, then that's what they get of the YouTube channel. Like I don't take a distribution fee on it or anything like that. I guess I technically could, because like what most distributors do or platforms do. So like, if a distributor makes a deal with, say, all right, we'll say Amazon, right? And then their deal with Amazon is they get 50% of the rental and Amazon gets 50% of the rental. And then of that 50%, the filmmaker gets their 80 and the distributor takes 20 or something like that, right? But with actually, to tell you the truth, I just talking about my ass. I don't know that that's how that works. But no, I'm not taking a distribution fee, would be the short answer. I try to talk too much sometimes. All right. Biggest filmmaking pet peeve. Just pessimistic and just a pessimistic, like you can't do it or it's too hard or untrusting. Like, and I'm not saying, look, I don't go through life like Pollyanna. Oh, nobody's out to get me. Everything's fine. But filmmakers that just come in with this like me against the world and like all distributors are evil and how do I know they're not ripping me off and that kind of thing. That bugs me. And filmmakers tearing each other down. Like so, like I was on Film Courage, did a few videos for them. And I was doing one and talking about how I once had, a few times had shot movies in a day, and I wasn't on there saying that you should do this, but then, I had, half a dozen people go in, start attacking me. Well, yeah, if you want to make movies on IMDb that have a rating of 3, like they go out and they find the movies specifically on IMDb that had 3 ratings. And anyway, so I just wish we wouldn't break each other down. That really bothers me, and just being pessimistic in general. Can you talk about using found footage or how you go about licensing other people's footage for your doc work, and where is the line drawn in regards to fair use? Okay, so this is my take on fair use, guys, and I am not a lawyer. So you want to use fair use, go for it. But from my understanding, fair use is a defense. It's not a bulletproof vest. The trick in making movies is to not get sued. Is to not have to use that excuse. So like I personally, I don't fuck around with fair use. I just don't. If I don't have, I either pay for the footage or I shoot it myself, and that's it. Like I do not mess around with fair use. And that's just me. I know, like if people, especially on YouTube, they'll talk about, oh no, it's fine. We do it on YouTube all the time, and YouTube has different rules, and you could still get sued. Anyway, I'm not saying I don't. I just don't use it. That's my 2 cents. So as far as licensing footage, through all the major, stock footage sites, the one I use most often is Storyblocks. I pay for the subscription to them. I do a pro subscription, which covers me up to $1 million in the case of any kind of legal action, and that's what I use. I use them both for music and video. And then if I need something more specific that maybe they don't have, I might go to like Pond 5, and look up a specific shot, maybe pay for that one shot. But 99% of the time I use Storyblocks. More on splits. Is there a way to set up YouTube backend to do pay to the collaborators on your film directly, or you're doing the calculations with yourself? Yeah, I do not think there may be a way to set that up, but I wouldn't know. I would just be doing the calculations myself. Basically, whatever the split was. Like if you made a video for me and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to give you 80% of this video, the movie earns $100 in a 30-day period, you get $80 of it. That's how it would work. For me anyway. Linda, have you used YouTube advertising to promote your films? I have, but not enough to really speak on it, if any kind of authority. I've done a few YouTube video ads, but to tell you the truth, I haven't quite got it down. Like I use Facebook ads probably more than anything else as far as paid ads. And that's not necessarily because Facebook is the best place to do ads. It's just the place that I'm most familiar with. There's a filmmaker that I know that puts out a lot of movies, and he uses almost strictly YouTube ads, and he loves them. But I personally haven't figured them out. So I haven't figured out how to get my click-through rates low enough to make it worth anything. The only place I've been able to do that myself has been on Facebook. I've also played around a little bit with Twitter ads. Always did really horribly, and a little bit on Pinterest when I was first getting into Pinterest. But now, to be totally honest, like I had some really good luck on Pinterest, not in paid ads, but just on placing videos in the first like 3 months that I was on Pinterest. Like I had videos that were getting like 100,000 views. I was like, oh my God, and I was doing videos about it, and everybody should check out Pinterest. And I think it was just some kind of algorithm fluke, because like these days I still put stuff up on there and I get like 5 and 10 views. Anyway, that's my little Pinterest aside. Any good resources on contracts for actors or people you would want to work in your documentaries? contracts for actors. I mean, dude, if you Google actor SAG contracts or Google actor contracts, you'll get so many examples. I'm not a lawyer. I don't like to give or point people towards examples of legally binding stuff, but it's out there, man. I mean, the one I used on most of my movies, I downloaded off Google fucking like 10 years ago, and I still use it. But anyway, it's out there. But I would, even if like there are resources and websites where you can like like asklawyer like .com or something, I don't know, and where you can actually like get legal advice on stuff like that, and that's what I would do, or talk to a producer that's more fluent in it. I to be 100% honest, I don't know a ton about contracts. I have a producer that I work with that usually handles all mine. And like, in the case of Craving, I actually have a lawyer for that movie, you know. Are your narrative productions bonded? Like insured, you mean by bonded? Actually, if you mean if they're insured, yes. Bonded, is that what they'll, fuck, you know what? I'm not the term threw me. I get insurance, production insurance on all the narratives that I do. And usually on a, sub $50,000 movie, you're looking at like between $2,000 and like $5,000 for an insurance policy. And it usually covers you up to a few $1,000,000. And that's usually what I get. When you want to cast people for your films, where do you put ads usually? Oh, to be honest, usually I use something like on Craving for all our casting. We used Actors Access. I like those type of things. Of course, I've been working out of Los Angeles, so I don't know if that exists for other cities or not. But I mean, I see people all the time doing Facebook posts for it and getting lots of responses. I personally, Actors Access or other breakdown services is what I do. Like if you Google breakdown services, you can find places that are doing that thing. And a lot of them do it for free. There's some where you have to pay like a, $20 fee or something to do it. But stuff like that's usually where I go. What's your experiences with October Coast? Can you ballpark their average price range? So I have only worked with October Coast once, and it was with a documentary. It was kind of an experiment. To be honest, they got a lot of reviews for it. It didn't really help that particular project out that much. But I am actually planning to use them for Craving. I think they're better for narrative and especially like horror and genre stuff. So I'm planning on using them. Their prices start at around $600 and they kind of go up from there. And I think the $600, like basically they blasted out your press release out to all their press contacts, and I think it has a pretty good success rate. And then there's like a tier higher, I think might be 800 or 900, where they'll actually follow up with all of them for the ones that didn't do reviews. And then I don't know what's after that. I really only looked at the first two tiers, but I remember it was like $600 to $800, and I think like the highest tier might have been like 1,200 or something like that. I might be mistaken, but I thought the info was on their website, but I might be mistaken. But if you just call and talk to them, they'll break it all down. Oh, thank you. Yeah, dude, I would do more of these. To be honest, I said it at the top. I get a little bit nervous doing live streams, like all the freaking camera work I've done and everything, and I get like straight up like butterflies in my stomach, shaky when I'm doing live streams. I don't know why. If you'll notice, like it's really hard for me to stop talking. Like I have to just keep filling up the dead space, which is why sometimes I'll ramble on a little bit too much, like I'm doing right now. In regards to FilmHUB, how do you deal with it when small channels pick up your material for larger ones like Tubi or Amazon? So, okay, I'm gonna admit something. I don't mess with it. I look at the Tubi and Amazon release as like the releases. So when it, like, if it hits like Plex first or something like that, I may make a couple of offhanded, hey, we're on Plex, but I wait until it hits Tubi or Amazon before I really start doing it. Unless it's something that I might be premiering on YouTube, then I'd promote that heavier. And but that's pretty much it, to be honest. I don't start doing the secondary promotions till, like, so if something comes up, it hits Tubi, right? And so I'll promote that like hardcore, for about 90 days, Tubi. And then, if it's on Amazon, I might alternate between the two. But then, like, after that 90 days, then maybe I'll start doing the like plexes or, hoopla. Like I don't even mention Roku channels unless it's unless it's part of a larger post where you're saying, hey, we're on here, 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 and here and here, but I honestly, I start my promotion for the channels where I'm really earning. And to be 100% honest, at least, through FilmHUB and my account, I'm predominantly seeing money from Amazon and Tubi. There are others, but like, I mean, we're talking like probably a 6-to-1 differential, maybe higher. So not a lot. So another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was the difference between working faster and working better, or spending more time on projects. So I know, because of my business model, which has been, especially over the last 3 years, it's been a high volume business model. So I'm making movies fast and cheap, and some people would say, maybe because they're fast and cheap, they're shoddy too. Now, I don't necessarily follow that logic train, but I am starting to see more value in like slowing down and spending more time and putting out less projects. Whereas, 2 years ago, I was doing probably 3 documentaries a month, like average, but over the last year, and mostly due to Craving, so like Craving took, from fundraising to where I'm at now, about a year. We started the crowdfunder in February of 2022, this year. So it'll be a year coming up. And that took a lot of attention away from documentaries for a time. But what I thought would happen was, I thought it would just, like, my numbers would just crash because no new stuff. And the numbers definitely went down, but they didn't go down as bad as I thought they would. And in the middle there, we did one project that we spent more time on, and it was doing a little bit better. I would name it, but I can't right now. So I'm seeing more value in putting out less documentaries, putting them out better. But when I say less, I'm not talking about spending a year on these. I mean, if you're making a movie for under 50K and you're spending a year on it, yeah, it's just, I don't know. If it's a thing that you do for a living, that's too long. So anyway, so now, as opposed to doing, 2 documentaries in a month, I'll do one every 3 months, something like that. And we'll see how this model does for me. Because, to tell you the truth, distribution and stuff changes so fast. And like what we make in the market and where we make it, it changes so fast. Who knows what's going on next year, and what, the way I'm making movies now, will that be viable a year from now? Like, I don't even know. You just have to be ready to pivot and change. So, that's what I'm doing. And I've, so I just finished Craving, and I'm planning to go back and start doing more narratives. I'm not going to stop doing documentaries, but I want to do at least one new narrative a year, until I retire, hopefully. But, we'll see. So you don't feel like that affects the larger channels picking it up? No, not at all. No, not at all. At least in my experience, it hasn't. I mean, it can help to do better on a platform early, but and I don't know. This might be bad advice, because I have on my main FilmHub account, I have 45 movies. So like I have a history. So like when Tubi looks at a movie that came up through my account, I have a history. So like, whether my movie does well on Plex or not, I'm probably going to get on Tubi fairly early. That might not be the same for someone who has less. So that might be really awful advice, even that I said earlier. Like, so maybe you should be pushing the Plex right when it comes out. But in my particular case, I don't. Which brings me to my current methodology for promoting an independent film. So I want to talk about, I'm going to use Craving as an example because it's the one I'm fixing to get ready to promote really hard. So I want to talk about what I'm doing or what I'm planning to do with that movie. So first off, I did, tons of promotion for the crowdfunder, back in February, and we ran that all the way through. God dang, it was on in demand. Well, it's still on in demand, but we were promoting it all the way through like August or September. I think I even did a few posts in October. But anyway, through the course of that, like built up some interest. There's some stuff out there, and over the course of production, our behind the scenes guy shot I think I have like 3 terabytes of, HD, behind the scenes footage. So I like tons of stuff to make material from. But in between when we stopped the crowdfunder and, until the movie's just ready to come out, I'm not releasing a thing. Like I've been pretty much radio silent on it. Like I am saving my promotion for when I can point people towards a place where they can get it for pre-sale, or if it's getting ready to premiere on somewhere like Shutter or something like that, which could happen. I won't know. We can't say nothing yet. But that's a possibility. So anyway, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start building, or what I am doing is starting to build up my promotional material. So I personally cut 2 trailers for it, both at I'm sorry, 190-second and 160-second trailer, and then I do cut downs of those at 60 seconds, 30 seconds, and 15 seconds. So 2 cut downs for the 60-second and 3 cut downs for the 90-second. So, and that's just the one I cut. And then our special effects guy, who's also a very awesome promotional editor, I had him do a 2-minute trailer for the movie, which actually it's so good. It's going to be our main trailer. Honestly, he's just a better trailer editor than I am, and I'm really excited. And my gut, like I just wanted to export it and start showing people, right? But I think I'd be doing the sales a disservice. I want to, when that trailer goes out and people say, wow, that trailer's badass, I want them to be able to go right then to watch the movie or buy the movie or rent the movie. I don't want to put out a trailer today, in November 23rd, and somebody watch it like, oh, that's really awesome. Yeah, I want to see that. Where is it? Well, it's not out yet. When's it come out? I don't know, like March. Okay, maybe I'll remember it. So anyway, that's why I hold back on promotion. So anyway, I got the trailers. So mine and my cut downs and his cut downs, and I will probably end up cutting probably 5 more, and the basically character trailers. So I'll take all of the main characters and I'll cut a trailer that focuses on this one and a trailer that focuses on this one. This is a trick I learned when I was editing for Fox. I used to work at Fox Digital, and I cut promos and trailers for them. And they would take a movie, and when it first come out, of course they had the trailer companies doing things, but then internally they would have editors working on all these cut down spots. And I mean, I was doing character trailers sometimes for like secondary characters from like 4th banana characters from movies, and I was giving them like their own trailer. But anyway, but I the thing is when you want to promote an indie film, you need a lot of material to promote. You can't just be promoting the same trailer, the same poster, the same 2 or 3 stills. I mean, I see so many indie filmmakers out there promoting their stuff. Like I'm watching a couple of guys they did crowdfunders and now their movie's getting ready to come out 6 months later. And still the only friggin' thing that they're using over and over and over again is like that poster, and it might be a good poster, but you got to have more than that. And speaking of posters, like, so, we have the one created for the initial Indiegogo. We had another one created for the secondary Indiegogo. And then I will probably pay to have one more done somewhere between now and then. And then I'll probably do 2 or 3 more on my own. And then in addition, our special effects guy does really good graphic design as well. And he's done character posters for everybody. So, I'll be starting to repurpose those when we get into promotion. So like, I think, and I've said this a couple of times, the first 90 days of a film's release are really the most crucial for promotion. And I think you should have at least one new piece of material for every day of those 90 days. So I'm talking 90 pieces of either, it could be art, trailers, behind the scenes clips, little featurettes, and now with TikTok and all the really short stuff, now you can do like little short vertical versions of everything. So shoot, that's another thing I got to do. I got to do vertical cut downs of every trailer. Oh, just remembered. So anyway, and I'll start once the movie is released or is on the eve of release. I'm sorry, backtrack. About 30 days from the movie's intended release. And again, I'm going to keep using the word intended release because unless you get a major, unless we close that major streaming deal with like Shudder or somebody like that, we're not going to have a date to push people to, most likely. So it's just you wait till it comes out. So about 30 days, maybe 45 days before when I think the movie could come out, I'll hire somebody like October Coast PR, and I'll start. And if I don't hire them, because like the cool thing about a promotional company is like they're doing the legwork for you. And a lot of times, a lot of these outlets, they don't talk to too many individual filmmakers. They would much rather deal with a PR firm, like them, and you're more likely to get a response. So for the higher response rate, I'd be more likely to use a PR firm, but you don't necessarily have to. Like one thing I'm doing on Craving, and regardless of whether I do end up using October Coast or not, is, I get on Google and I look up top 100 horror podcasts and I go through each and every one of them and I contact each and every one asking about either an interview or a review for my movie or whatever it is they do. Everyone. Well, everyone that's relevant, if it's like what's his name? Mick Garris's podcast. I'm probably not going to hit up Mick Garris. I don't think I'm going to be on his podcast, but all the indie ones anyway. And then I'll do the same thing for like online reviews. That's another way to get good reviews is like I'll go to other independent films that came out the year prior that are in my same genre, around my same budget level, and I'll start looking at where they're getting press. Like if you just go on IMDb, usually they have external reviews or press links, and you just go to that and I start clicking on one by one. I look for contact for either the author or the website, and I start hitting them up. And I'll probably spend about most of the month before my release working on that, and then of course, promoting all that as it comes, and that's pretty much my grassroots thing, like I will do some paid ads, but I will not touch a paid ad on the movie until the release of the movie. I take that back. I'll do some low cost ads leading up to the release of the movie just to get my targeting down, like $1 a day. And I just keep messing around with the targeting until I get like a really good click through. Although I've been seeing on Facebook lately where they're actually recommending that you don't specifically target the ad and you let them figure it out. I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to experiment around a little bit with that and I'll get back with some data on it. But right now, I don't know. I'm from the, do your own targeting, headspace. We'll see how that works in coming coming weeks. But so anyway, I'll do paid ads on it for probably the first 60 days, like, and not a ton. Like I'm talking like somewhere between $5 and $20 a day tops, you know. And then after that, you know, I'll pare it down to like the $1 a day that I spend on other projects, you know. But that's probably it. That, and you know, maybe some money for October Coast if I do in fact go down that road. Phonograph asks, ooh, questions. How much does Craving cost? Well, it's not listed yet, and that'll be a little bit up to the distributor. I would assume it'd be somewhere like between $3.99 and $6.99 rental, and I don't know, like $14 purchase. I'm guessing. I really don't know. You know, whatever, you know, indie new releases are doing, you know. But it won't be like if I was pricing it myself and, you know, without their input, I would probably do $3.99 HD rental, $2.99 SD rental, and like a $12 purchase is where I would do it. But you know, I let like in the case of Craving, I've chose to work with a distributor, and they deal with a lot more films and numbers than I do. So like I will let them decide what the best rate is for that movie, you know. I'm right there with you. The promo thing. We created local ads from the fiction. Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. And another somebody recently, I did an interview with Alak Mishra. He was one of the producers of One Bedroom, which was like a freaking huge hit on Netflix, and he was talking about how, because I think their whole movie, spoiler, is about a community, like an apartment community in Los Angeles, but it's like a cult, right? And so like they created a Twitter account and they started like tweeting out like as if the cult was real, you know, like talking about, you know, like come for our housewarming and like weird stuff like that. And they had a really engaged. I think he said they got the most engagement on Twitter from that movie. But anyway, that interview is going to be up in a couple of weeks. I'm waiting. That movie is going to be hitting Tubi, I think in January, I think he said, is when they're looking for it. And when that comes out, I'll start putting out those reviews. But anyway, yeah, totally. And I helped, you know, I'm credited as a producer, but I basically just helped raise a little money for a movie called 16 Bits. And it's about, it's a video game character that comes to life. And the character's name is Wax Waster, played by Kevin Caliber, who was in Craving, also a producer in Craving. And anyway, so like we created a Twitter account like Wax Waster, so he would tweet, or you know, continues to tweet, has the character, you know, and does all this stuff. And we did all of these so it's like the movie is, you know, just it's kind of this like hardcore, like quirky, like action comedy, but we did all these PSAs that were basically like the old like GI Joe PSAs, but like Wax Waster is the GI Joe character, and instead of like teaching the person a lesson, the person would do something bad and he would just kill them. And we had all these little PSAs for it that were really cool. And hopefully if they're smart, they'll repurpose those and, you know, promote their movie. But we'll see. Oh, dude, thank you so much, man. That is so nice. You know, I really appreciate the super chats, guys. Like, I don't like asking for them, but I really do appreciate it. You know, I do not make a ton of money off this channel. So, you know, if people can come in and, you know, throw in $5, throw in $10, throw in 50 cents, whatever it is, like that I really do like that stuff, man. It means a lot to me. And anyway, thank you so much. So let me answer your question. How long did it take to edit Craving, and did you start cut it while shooting? So first, I will say I do like to start cutting during shooting, but in the case of Craving, as I was directing and I did not have the money to hire a an editor to cut while we were on set. I did have a DIT assistant editor, but he was also the behind the scenes videographer. So there really was no time to cut during production. So I actually didn't even look at footage, until like maybe a week after we wrapped, because I was so spent. But so he was looking at the footage, so we made sure everything was there, but I didn't look at anything until after it was done. So I'm gonna tell you, so we wrapped the first leg of production. Man, I'm gonna get my dates kind of fucked up here, but let's just say we ended the first leg of production on April 1st. I don't know if that's true, and then I spent a month. And so Craving takes place 90% and 80% in a bar locations, kind of a siege picture, and then about 20% in various other locations and exteriors. So the first leg of the shoot was all the stuff inside the bar. So we shot all of that in 6 days, I think. And then I spent probably 30 days editing everything that was in the bar. Now, this isn't to fine edit. This is basically, it's a little more than a rough cut, but not quite a fine edit. And then we shot the other stuff. And then after we shot the other stuff, I spent another probably 30 days cutting that in and tightening it all up. Then once I get, and I do this a little differently. Most people will not give anything to a composer till they get a picture locked, like completely locked, because they don't go messing around with different things. I'm a really good music editor. No ego intended. I'm a good music editor. So I don't mind getting a score with all the stems and then cutting music later. So once I had that first cut, everything's shot. I'm pretty happy with this cut. I know things are going to slightly change, but this is cool. Then I give it to the composer, and the composer starts working. And then it takes, for the score on this one, probably, I'm going to say 45 days. We're still in it, so it's hard to say for sure. But beginning to end, I mean, if you concentrated it all, it'd be like 3 months. But it was spread out over a period of time. And to be honest, because I took so much time off from documentaries, I had to cut a few documentaries in between there. So if you actually added up the time, like solid, like straight time, I probably spent 2.5 months, and then probably another 45 to 60 days on score. And then, once we get the score done, I'll have to go to a sound mixer, and that'll be another week or two. All said and done, like I'll say, it'd be under 6 months, or 4 months concentrated. All right, Justin asks, your recommended genres for micro budget, if you had to rank them based on ROI. All right, so just based on the numbers I've seen, and I know in the past I've been real, flighty about answering this question, like, well, it depends on the movie and blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you, all right, let's just tell it straight out. From the numbers I've seen over the past, 3 years, and I've seen numbers from thousands of films, distributor and other filmmakers. Black, African-American content, movies, and usually we're not talking gangsta stuff here, but stuff from a female perspective, very low budget, and the Black community has been number one by far. I've seen movies fitting that bill earning 100K a month or 100K a quarter, like absolutely killing it. Some of them are very good. Some of them not so much, but the audience loves them. And I'm going to tell you what I think the main reason for this is. They're making movies that Hollywood has ignored. They're making movies for, Black, female, middle to lower income audiences. And they're not seeing movies like that for them, in the mainstream, not nearly as much. I mean, basically what one of the filmmakers I was interviewing on my channel, and he said he basically described them as Black Lifetime movies, and they're killing. They don't have as big of a mainstream footprint. So there's an audience out there that's rabid for it. There's a Facebook group called Best New Tubi Movies. and I think they have something like 50,000 members or something like that, and it's predominantly Black. They're super engaged, like you wouldn't believe. Like it's amazing. I was talking to one of the filmmakers that runs it, and they said they directly account success of certain movies to that group, just because they're so supportive of each other. But the thing is, though, you can take that and you can move that into different genres. Like if you're making horror movies, right? Well, let's make a horror movie that's like, and I'm not talking about diversity casting or anything like that here. I'm just like, do stuff that's not been done a ton or not been done in that way, is serve an audience that's not currently being served, and you could have a big hit. But anyway, so yeah, the Black like drama and comedy movies are doing great. Horror, like always, they are killing, dude. Like they're just like horror movies, and this year for horror movies, I mean, oh man, I mean, what a year for horror. From Terrifier, I mean, I won't speak ill of any other horror movies, but it's not my cup of tea. But I mean, the way that has succeeded is just incredible. Like it's incredible. That's a movie budgeted at like 250,000, something like that, and it made $12 million in the box office. That's insane. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that since like Halloween days. Anyway, it's really cool. It's really cool. So horror and documentary, if you have a good core audience, and if you have people in it that have their own audiences. For example, somebody asked me about two of my better earners, which are these astrology docs, which that the success of them, I can pretty much put that on that the guy that we interviewed, like his following, just because they were very engaged and like just watched the movie and showed their friends the movie, and it did really well. Anyway, that's what I say. So yeah, I would say the Black drama, horror, and again, being slightly unique or genre bending or genre mashup in your horror. It seems like werewolf movies are fixing to do really well. I've seen a lot of them coming up. Like Steve C. Miller just did a fairly big budget werewolf movie with Frank Grillo that looks really cool. I think it's called Year Two. And there's a filmmaker named Mark Cantu. He's a Facebook friend of mine, and he did a crowdfunder for a movie called Wolf Hollow. That was successful, and he just released a trailer for that last week, and it looks really good. Anyway, so I think those might do really well. I've heard in horror that creature stuff is doing pretty good, even if you don't have a name. Like if the creature design is good, you have a good special effects artist that can carry it. That's kind of what I'm hoping with Craving. So I'll know more on that in about 6 months. Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yes, Ashley is. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, actually, I was in the yoga scene with her in 16 bits. Yeah, Ashley's great. What's the average? What is the average of what? I've been talking a lot, man. Not sure. You're awesome. Yeah, I try. Oh, what's the average? Heads up. Do you get from major platforms that your project is premiering so you can promote? So you typically with indie films, you don't get any kind of money up front or any deal. You're not selling your movie to Amazon. They're placing it on Amazon, and then you're getting a revenue split. So the averages are all over the place, dude. It depends on the movie and how much that movie earns. I mean, in this last year in my library, I've had movies earn, north of $50,000, and I've had movies earn less than $100. It really just depends, and there are no averages. Thank you, Justin. Super nice, man. Thank you. All right, so what was I talking about? Promotion. Okay. Documentary versus narrative features. So the reason in the first place that I even went to do documentaries was because honestly, I'd done narratives for a while. I put a lot of effort into a movie called Death Day. It was called The Campus back then, and had a lot of outside problems and inside problems and distribution issues. I actually did 2 videos on this channel about that and what went wrong, which you check out after this if you're curious. But that experience left me so battered and so burned out. And here's the thing, I don't think the movie turned out bad. It's just the distribution strategies at the time, and this was like 2017, 18, had changed really radically in that like 5 year or 3 years between when I put out my last narrative and that one. Like I was making like movies that I was directing in between 2012 and or 2010, 2014 were just cleaning up on physical, like on DVD and Blu-ray sales. I mean, we're talking 6 figures plus, doing really well. And streaming was just kind of starting to kick in, but it was nothing like physical. And back in those days, you could make a movie for $50,000 in a few select genres with the right kinds of cast, but there was a formula, and if you followed that formula, you were pretty much at least guaranteed to break even, at least according to like the producers that I was working with. And so but that paradigm just doesn't exist anymore. And I was like following that paradigm when I started Campus, and without realizing that it had all changed. And so then when that movie came out, and it didn't do well, and it was a horrible experience, and I was just like, man, I don't want to do narratives anymore. So I'm gonna start doing documentaries, and I had, up to that point, I had no interest in making documentaries, like none whatsoever. But another producer friend of mine had said a couple of times, like, you should just look into it, dude. It's like, I'm not passionate about it. Like, he was like, just try it and see, like, it's a totally different style of filmmaking. So I had a acquaintance that owned a dog rescue in Las Vegas. And so I call her up and I was like, hey, would you be interested in me doing a documentary about your dog rescue? She had kind of an interesting story. So, and she's like, yeah, sure. So I drove out to Vegas. I stayed with her for like not even a week, like maybe like 4 days. Like I went out on a Thursday and left on a Tuesday, and shot interviews with her, other people that worked for her, shot B-roll with the dogs and whatnot. And something really strange happened. Like, so I went down there with no like real positive expectations of it. I was like, yeah, this will be okay. But it was like, I'm doing it to do it because I don't know what's next for me. But doing those interviews and listening to these people that are so passionate about what they're doing, and they're sitting here, talking about why they love dogs, or, the story about, how they rescued their first dog, or the first time they lost one, or whatever. And you're watching this, and it's almost impossible not to get caught up in it. I mean, I am a dog lover, but I never had really any big interest in dog rescues or anything like that. And it just I was getting misty behind the camera. I was like, wow, this is a really cool story. And then shortly after that, I got hooked up with Jeremy Norrie, who's directed a lot of the documentaries that I've done. And he's a cannabis guy. And we started interviewing people about cannabis being used for medical purposes for people suffering from cancer. And again, I smoked a little weed here and there, but I wasn't a big cannabis guy. I knew nothing about it, nothing about the legalization or the medical use. I mean, I was very ignorant of it. And I started interviewing these people, and, like people that have, their loved ones, last, months, which would have been miserable, were like, pleasant because of this, or people that even claim that it helped fight the cancer off. And whether you believe that or not, they believe it, and they're very passionate. And I don't know, there was like this overwhelming emotion, like getting these stories out. And even doing Bigfoot stuff. Like we interviewed a couple of Bigfoot guys, and I will admit it here, and I'll probably lose some viewers over it. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I've watched listening to these people that do, or that believe it's a possibility, but they're passionate about their research. And again, like if you're interviewing people that are really into a subject and are really passionate about it, I don't care what the subject is, it all of a sudden becomes exciting as a filmmaker. So by the third or fourth documentary, I was hooked. Like it didn't matter what the subject was, unless it was like something like, hateful or something. But I never did anything like that. But yeah, I'd be super into it. So that's why I started moving into documentaries, and I still like doing them. I still get that from them. And I just try. My only edict when it comes to documentaries is I don't want to do anything exploitive. Like if I'm doing a Bigfoot documentary, it's not going to be like woo woo, like what's that? What's that? Oh my gosh, or like fake sightings or makeup or any of that crap. I just want to do. I'm more interested in the people behind it. Like I to be honest, I don't give a fuck about Bigfoot. But what I do care about is like the people that do. And I feel the same way about UFOs or paranormal stuff. We did a life after death documentary. We did a EVP documentary. I really don't believe in any of it, but I'm fascinated in the people that do, and that's why I like documentaries. But all of that said, I don't get the same kind of creative satisfaction that I do out of, say, writing a narrative, creating something totally from nothing and then working with the actors and bringing that thing to life. Like when I did Craving, like before Craving, if you would have asked me about 6 months prior to the point where I started raising money for that movie, I would have said, I'm probably never going to direct another narrative again. But that script had been sitting around for a while, and I was like, I want to do this movie. So I did it, and dude, it totally reinvigorated my passion for that type of filmmaking. I mean, working with the actors again, and staging the stuff, and shooting and picking the camera angles, and then editing it together later, and I haven't been so happy with how a project has come out in post in many years. So like I'm really excited to get this one out. And, even when we wrapped, I was like, well, I still don't, maybe this was a one-off, maybe I won't do another, but I'm already looking to, start picking a project for 2023 and raising money for that, so I'll probably keep going. All right. Super sticker. Thank you for saying that. Hollywood doesn't serve us, so we make our own films. It seems to work. Oh yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think the secret to, and I've said it before, like what people always ask, what genres do the best? I always think it comes down to audience. What is the audience for your film, and what do you have to offer that audience? Is it something different? If you're doing so. And I hesitate even saying this, but so like you're a white filmmaker and you're going to do a horror movie and you're going to do a slasher in the woods movie. It better be fucking fantastic, because there's 1,000 of them. There's 1,000 of them. Like there are so many. I mean, there's probably 20 of them on my Facebook feed now raising crowdfunding money. Thousands of them. So like it better be damn special. So like to try to do something out of the norm, that's all I'm saying. I don't want to get preachy. Sorry. In regards to Black Summit, yeah. Tubi, Tubi in general has been best for independent films, but like when I talk about, the movies that are making $100,000 like in a month or in a quarter, those are typically Black films. I don't know a lot outside of that genre that have done that well. Like I personally, in my entire career, have had maybe half a dozen movies out of 70 that have done anything close to that. Maybe 2 that have actually done more than that, like in a short period of time. Anyway. Do you think making a short film is a calling card for you to get money, being it for a feature? Smile was based on. So, Chris, I think if you're talking about smaller, it depends on what your aims are. if your aim is to make a studio film like Smile, then yeah. But I would also be willing to bet you, $1,000 that there's at least that for every short film that leads to a Smile, there's 10,000 others that didn't. You know what I mean? It's an approach, but it's definitely, actually forget that. Because, anybody that starts poo pooing on anybody's like methodology, like there's 1,000 different ways to get your movie funded, and there are no wrong ways. There is no right way. It just whatever works. If that works, in that case, it actually worked for that guy. And I bet you there was some asshole like me that told him, "Oh, you'll never get a movie like that with this." So and then he went and did it. So yeah, fuck me. Don't don't listen to what I say. I personally don't like short films. As a filmmaker, like I don't see much upside in making them, because at least on an indie level, most of what we're doing is, I look at what, and I know this sounds very opportunistic or like money, but if there's no way to earn money on a thing, I don't really do it. But I'm also like, I don't have any aspirations to direct studio features. Like I could care less about that. I like, if I'm doing $100,000 movies till I die, I'm just fine. I'm not saying I wouldn't take a $4 million budget, but I'm not pursuing it. So I really, in short, I'm just not the right guy to answer that question. All right. Oh, thank you so much, dude. That was very, very kind. I appreciate it. Hey, I think this is the most super chats I've ever gotten in a video. Thanks, guys. After a rough year, I'll get more involved in your next year. Oh, thank you, man. You know what? This dude was on my Facebook during the crowdfunding campaign, and dude, the comments, sharing the posts, like that's every bit as helpful. I actually remember your name better than some people that put in $1,000. No, not really, but you know what I'm saying though. I really appreciate it. I mean, the average amount of time you'll get from that platform telling your movie is going up. Dude, I've went over this a bunch, man. On indie films, you don't. It gets up when it gets up. If you just go back after this video is live, you can go back like 20 minutes, and I talked about this for a long time. So, So, with all of this talk about FilmHUB and whatnot, Christopher Cooksey and on Facebook, Cooksey, sorry man, asked this question: do you think with services like FilmHUB that small and do you think that with services like FilmHUB, small and accessible PR companies and decentralized blockchain, with similar companies with the same, god dang it, sorry guys. Sorry, I have this long sentence and it was cut off. Okay. Do you think that with services like FilmHUB, small and accessible PR companies, and decentralized blockchain, traditional film distribution will become a thing of the past? Interesting question. So I don't think the traditional distribution is going anywhere. I think a real important component to this is, will it go away for really independent films? And when I talk about really independent films, I am talking about under $50,000 movies. People shot it in freaking Indiana with no connections to anybody in LA, anything like that. No, nothing. Just went out and made their movies. I think for movies like that, which is honestly, those are the kind of movies I'm making. I do think traditional distribution will become less and less common. I don't think it will completely go away, but I do think that the main future of really independent film are companies like FilmHUB, distribution platforms that place the movie onto larger platforms for you. I do think that is the the future of indie distribution. Not to be confused with studio distribution or larger forms, but I do think for indies, yes. I think 10 years from now, I think there'll be very few traditional distributors that deal with movies at that level. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. And then he went on to ask, will FilmHUB see similar companies with the same service pop up to compete with them? I think absolutely. I don't know anybody that's doing it successfully yet, but I would assume that they will, for sure. All right. It's this one. That's why I would make a short film or a trailer for the sake of getting something, even if it's a 50K to 100K film. I love what you do, man. Yeah, man. I know what you're saying, and I didn't mean to poo-poo on the whole thing. I've personally, I have a more do-it-yourself approach to both fundraising, and I'm not a rich man. When I say I fund my own projects, I mean I'm talking about a couple of $1,000s, or $5,000 or something like that. And when I've raised traditional money, though, it's usually just been through networking and people that I've worked with. I was an editor for many years, which is one of the best freaking positions to get into if you want to go further, because you're sitting there in a room for many hours with usually a director, usually a producer, sometimes executive producer. Dude, I've sat in rooms where it's been director and producer and 5 of their friends, and it turns out 3 of the friends of the people that financed the movie. And at a certain point, if you're sly, you can turn those conversations into what you're doing. And I'm not. I don't do it inappropriately, but when an opportunity presents itself, you're there to take advantage of it. So definitely, and I've tried the make a promotional trailer to raise more money for movies. I personally just haven't had that much success with it, which is why I sometimes dismiss it. But it's totally nothing to dismiss. I mean, honestly, actually, because I guess you could say that the promotional video that I made to do the crowdfunder for Craving was that. Anyway, definitely. I agree. Jason, definitely. Oh, thanks, guys. I really appreciate those the comments of support, man, and all the super chats. God dang, thank you guys so much. Great Thanksgiving gift. Tradition put together. So I wanted to talk just for a quick second about promoting on different filmmaking channels. Filmmaking channels, different social media networks, because everybody's like, what's the best social media to promote on? And my answer to that is it's always the same. It's whatever one you are most comfortable with, whatever one you have the most mastery of, that's the one you're going to do the best on, So for me, I'm a little bit of an older dude, and Facebook is where I know it the best. And as far as the documentaries go, my core audience for documentaries is usually 40 and up. So Facebook's perfect for it, I hear a lot of people saying they're having a lot of success on TikTok. I personally, I can barely navigate it. I do put videos up on it, but I never get more than a couple hundred views. But I'll keep trying, and I'll keep learning it, because the one thing about any of this is once you say with absolute certainty, no, that platform's not for me, I'm not going to learn it. Fuck it, it's worth waste of time. Basically, when you stop learning, you start dying. So I think it's important to embrace the new things and learn them. So, I'm doing my best with the TikToks, and maybe Twitter's going away. Who knows? All right. So let's see. I think I got a couple of more questions, guys, and I think I'm going to ramp this down. Let's see. Did that come up? Yeah. Chris asked, do you write scripts or find ones you like, or both? I write. Honestly, if you would have asked me what do you do 10 years ago, I would have said I'm a writer first, then a director, then an editor, even though I made more money as an editor, but whatever. I like, so writing's always been super like part of my identity, but like over the past, like say 5, 6 years, has I've like basically since campus, I just didn't have a lot of desire to write new projects. And honestly, I still have probably 12 finished scripts that I'll probably never ever make. That I would like to, but I probably just won't. So yeah, I usually write my own stuff. When I ran an animation company for a time, and we would hire out writers. And I used to, because I was so into screenwriting, I used to run a screenwriting get together in Los Angeles, and I found a couple of writers through there that we hired for the animation company. But by and large, I do my own stuff. All right. So, gosh, I think this is the longest one I've ever done. Too. I was just saying earlier. I was looking at Nick Nimmin. He does like how to build your YouTube channel stuff, and he does these like 3.5, 4 hour live streams. And I was like, how does somebody sit there for more than an hour? I typically like 60 minutes and I'm out. But this was good. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for checking it out. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do. And I hate doing all the cheesy, hit the like button and whatnot, but do hit the like button, share the videos. That stuff really does help. And my channel, it continues to grow, but I've never hit like, nothing's ever went viral. Like it doesn't seem like people share the videos a lot, so like I would really appreciate that. Like just share the video on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. That'd be really cool. Anyway, guys, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for checking me out, and I will see you around. And if you guys ever have questions, my email's in the description. Send me a question. I try to get to everyone's. Sometimes I might miss it, but I'm fairly approachable.